Yo, welcome back to the show, College Football Talks. I'm your host, Kenny the SC, and in today's episode, we will be breaking down the early success for the Florida Gators, giving the key takeaways from the Auburn and Georgia game, and predicting how the SEC will play out for the rest of the season. We will jump right into the episode by discussing the Florida Gators. Some key stat lines for the Florida Gators through the first two games are that they averaged 495 yards per game, which is 13th most in the country, and they score around 45 points per game, which is also the third best in the country. Now, quarterback Kyle Trask has been playing absolutely phenomenal. He has 684 passing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception through 2 games. He's playing very well, and he has the second most touchdown passes in the nation. Now, his favorite target, tight end Kyle Pitts, has 12 receptions for 227 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns, which is the second most receiving touchdowns in the country. Now, this is the most explosive the offense has been in years, and it is very exciting to watch. It is a very dominant offense and high-powered, but they still have some major question marks on the defensive side. The defense has given up a total of 942 yards of total offense through the first 2 games against Ole Miss and South Carolina. If you ask anyone, they'll tell you that those 2 teams are definitely not elite competition. The game against South Carolina was much closer than the score shows. Had Muschamp had more aggressive calls near the end of the fourth quarter, there could have been a completely different outcome. If the Gators want to be a real contender for the SEC, they will definitely need to improve on their defense, especially as it gets later in the season. It starts with not giving up as many yards or letting opposing offenses get big plays. A lot of big plays were given up by the Gators defense, especially against Ole Miss, who went on to score 35 points that game. Trouble will come for the Gators defense as they face high-powered offenses throughout the season. They go into College Station and face Texas A&M this week. The Aggies have a really underrated offense, and they can move the ball up and down the field whenever they choose. We saw them do this last week in the first half against Alabama. Dan Mullen is an excellent coach, and I do believe that he will solve the defensive issues before it gets late in the season and it causes the Gators trouble as they move along. Moving on further in the show, we will be talking about my post-game thoughts and key takeaways from the Georgia and Auburn game. Now, some takeaways for Georgia were that they did everything that I said they needed to do in order for them to get the win. The defense played good through all 4 quarters, and they did not give up a touchdown the entire game. The offense got the ball to its playmakers such as George Pickens, and when they did, they often scored touchdowns, ended up making big plays for the offense. The offense also did not commit any turnovers, and they protected the ball very well. They established a good run game so that they can take pressure off of the quarterback, Bennett. The Bulldogs rushed for 202 yards, and they absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage the entire game. So a key takeaway for them is that they are one of the best defenses in the country, and they had Auburn's offense on absolute lockdown the entire game by only giving up 6 points. It will be very interesting to see how the battle of the SEC East will play out this year. Now, on to my takeaways for Auburn and what they failed to do. Now, what I said they needed to do for them to win was that they needed to come out firing on all cylinders, and they absolutely did not do that. The offense had a total of 3 3-and-outs and only a field goal scored in the first half. I also said that the Auburn offense needed to give the ball to Seth Williams and Anthony Schwartz, and they failed to do that as well. Williams only had 3 catches for 34 yards, and Schwartz was minimalized to only running a few jet sweep plays, which had little to no impact. The next thing I said Auburn needed to do in order for them to win was they needed to establish a run game. They failed to run the ball hardly at all. They had a total of 39 rushing yards the entire game, and they're definitely not going to win games playing like that against Georgia. Lastly, I said Auburn offense needs to let Bo Nix loose, and they need to limit turnovers. And quarterback Nix was never able to get into rhythm, and he was constantly under pressure by the Georgia Bulldog defense. He never seemed comfortable in the pocket, and Georgia's defense was moving around pre-snap and causing a lot of confusion. So the key takeaway from this game is that Georgia definitely showed that they were not the same team that struggled against Arkansas. And they established themselves as having one of the best defenses in the country. Now, with all that being said, how will the SEC play out this year? Now, some surprise teams that I have picked out from the SEC are Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Now, these teams are due for an upset or a near program-building win sometime this season. Kiffin, in his first year with Ole Miss, I believe he can have a game similar to Auburn versus Texas A&M in 2013, which was a program-building win for Gus Malzahn. Kiffin is looking to make an impact in the SEC coming right out of the gate. Now, Jimbo Fisher, he has been in the league for 2 years and is only 1-8 against teams like Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Clemson, and Georgia. And his only win has been against LSU in the 7 overtimes. Pruitt and the Vols are definitely looking for a program-building win. The Vols have the longest active win streak with 8 games and are looking to keep it from being snapped. The Vols are a very run-heavy and power-run team and could cause problems against defenses like Auburn, who have a weak defensive line. Now, the teams that I have falling just short are Georgia, Auburn, and LSU. All 3 of these teams have shown glimpses of greatness and have a tremendous amount of talent on the field. But I just don't believe they will perform in the key games needed in order for them to make it to the next level. For LSU, they're being held back by injuries and departures from last year's national championship team. Auburn is being held back by coaching, an inexperienced offensive line, and offensive play calling, which has been a struggle under Gus Malzahn for years. Now, the teams that I have coming up in the championship, which you guys probably could have predicted by now, are Alabama and Florida. Now, these 2 teams have showed the most strength at the beginning of the season, especially on the offensive side of the ball, for both Bama and Florida. These teams are based off of big plays down the field and can score very fast. In a league that has turned to high-powered offense, it will be very difficult to keep pace with both Alabama and Florida this season. Well, thanks for watching. That's going to conclude today's video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe. I will see y'all next time.